Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Vayechi, and he lived. And it tells the story, it's the last few chapters of the book of Genesis. It tells the story of the last years of Jacob's life and ends actually with the end of Joseph's life as well. I would like to focus on the verses that discuss the death of Jacob, and particularly the funeral procession that goes from Egypt, the entire family of Jacob, up to the land of Canaan to bury Jacob. Now we know that Jacob had made Joseph and his brothers swear that they would not bury him in Egypt, that they would indeed take him up to the land of Canaan and bury him near his forefathers, in the very same cave of Machpelah where his grandfather Abraham and his wife Sarah is buried, where his parents Isaac and Rebekah are buried, and where he mentions as well in this week's portion where he buried Leah. Now his family gathers, and they too will take Jacob up to the land of Canaan for this burial. It's very interesting. The scripture tells us as follows. And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and the elders of the land of Egypt. And again, there's a big procession, and I'm going to skip a few verses, and I'm now reading from chapter 50, verse 10. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan. And there they mourned with a great and very sore lamentation. And he made a mourning for his father of 7 days. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the floor of Atad, they said, "This is a grievous mourning to Egypt," so that the name of it was called Avel Mitzrayim, the mourning of Egypt, which is beyond the Jordan. Now, this is actually, it is very interesting, because if you think about it, the funeral procession here went from Egypt northeast, and you would have expected a rather direct route to take them directly to Hebron. Instead, they end up on the eastern side of the Jordan River, and from there enter in the land of Canaan and go to Hebron. This is certainly not the direct route, but what it does do is it parallels the route that is taken by the children of Israel centuries later when they leave Egypt to go into the land of Israel. They too, like the children of Jacob, go through the desert, surround the land of Canaan, and enter in through the eastern side of the Jordan. I can only believe that this funeral procession itself is a foreshadowing of the actual entrance of the children of Israel into the land centuries later as conquerors, as true heirs to the land of Israel. Rashi, on the words, the threshing floor of Atad, in Hebrew, Goren HaAtad, brings a midrash, which I find to be very interesting. The midrash tells a story, and it says that when the funeral procession was approaching that area, the princes of Ishmael, as well as the kings of Canaan, came out to do battle. However, when they saw the crown that was laid, I assume the royal crown of Egypt, that was laid upon the throne of Jacob, they realized that this was not a proper time to do war, and therefore they desisted. Now, the Rashi therefore brings the connection. What's the connection between this crown on the coffin of Jacob and the words, the threshing floor of Atad? Now, an Atad is a very prickly animal. It's like a porcupine. And what Rashi is essentially saying is they saw the thorn, they saw the crown on the coffin, and it reminded them of a circle or a barrier of thorns that will be placed around a threshing floor to prevent unwanted people or animals from coming in. And basically this crown, therefore, was a protection and protected this funeral party from being attacked. To me, however, what this story actually tells us is that the time was not yet right. It was not yet right, not for the entry of the children of Israel into the land and the conquest of that land from the Canaanites. It certainly was not right for the Ishmaelites and the Canaanites to actually come out and do battle. But the very fact that this Midrash tells the story of the gathering here for battle just reinforces the fact that what we have here is a foreshadowing of the procession that will come centuries later. And I think basically what we see here is a fulfillment of the promise of the statement that God makes to Jacob just before he leaves the land of Canaan to go down to Egypt. Now what he knows at that point is that he's going to meet his son Joseph. He has no idea how long he will be there. In fact, the impression given by this entire family journey, and indeed by the words said by Joseph to the message sent by Joseph back to his father, come down for 5 years. There is an expected additional 5 years of famine to be in Egypt. The family is invited to come down for that period, and then they will go back. Jacob, however, is told something completely different by God. And here I'm referring to chapter 46, verse 3. And he said, God, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down to Egypt, for I will there make of you a great nation. I will go down with you unto Egypt, and I will also surely bring you up again. And Joseph shall put his hands on your eyes. What God here promises to Jacob is that he personally will come back, but he will come back after his death. For it is Joseph who will lay his hands upon his eyes after his death. Yes, God promises Jacob that he will come back and will be buried in the land of Canaan, but he also makes it clear he will make of Jacob a great nation there in Egypt. The children of Israel are there to stay for a long time and will not come out again until they are a great nation. Jacob knows of the promise that was made to Abraham of an exile of 400 years of his children, and I'm sure he understands at this point that that exile is about to begin. And therefore, it is very clear that there is a history going on here that is beyond the will or the ability of Jacob and his children to effect. They are coming back to the land of Canaan to bury him as God promised. But it is not yet the time for the children of Israel to come out and resettle in the land of Canaan. They have to wait till they become a great nation. They have to wait till they undergo years of slavery. And then God will bring them out from the land, and they will truly come back to the land and be able to withstand the battles that they will face from the Canaanites, from the Ishmaelites, from anyone who attempts to fight them. For they will come back a victorious nation and redeem the land of Israel. Shabbat Shalom from Samaria.
Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom.